I'd like to call the September 5th, 2024 meeting to order. We are the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, and we are meeting in the City Council's in Soldotna, Alaska. Will the Parks and Rec admin please call roll? Thank you.
Dolphin,
Here.
Villa, Via,
Here.
Guteel,
Here.
Here.
Scudder, here, Hawker, Fadla,
Present. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. It was a very nice agenda, by the way. Thank you. Approval of minutes for July 11th, 2024, the regular meeting day. Is there a motion to approve the July 11th, 2024 minutes?
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you. May I have a second?
A second.
Okay. Are there any objections to approval of the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. Tonight, no public comments and presentations are scheduled, and I do not see anybody in the room at this moment. So we will go on to our action item, and I have a question on that. This action item will actually talk about the fee schedule as presented, and that's the only thing. It's not talking about all the things you're doing in this project packet. Is that correct? Okay, thank you very much. And Connie is here. Thank you, Connie. So I'd like to state that Connie Hawker just popped in and didn't pop in, she walked in. Thank you. I've been with the baby too often. So is there a motion to approve the Fieldhouse fee schedule as presented? That's my question, I guess.
Yeah, somebody just need to make a motion for it.
Okay.
Mhm.
It's just a
Yeah.
recommendation. We can discuss it still, right?
Yeah, after you get a second, then we can discuss it,
Okay, thank you.
and then you would vote.
Okay, so is there a second? Or did I have a first? Did somebody?
I'll make the motion if it hasn't happened yet.
I
And
didn't
someone
think
else can say.
Yeah, I have a second.
Second it.
Thank you. And then I would like you, Mr. Todd, Director, to go over the discussion.
Cool. As you guys know, we've been talking about the field house for a million years. We've had estimated fees and an estimated budget for a lot of the planning process, but to actually go from guesses and to real fees has been kind of a challenge. We spent a lot of time this past summer looking at every other recreation facility in the state, plus a bunch on the outside, to see what people are charging, what's best practices. We kind of highlighted a few of the main categories that you see at the first part of this is the drop-in sports / walking track. This is the time that we see being probably the most time in the field house where anybody could just come in with their family or friends, play a game, pick up soccer, pick up basketball. This isn't like a reservation. This is just kind of a walk-in pickup game or a walking track. The tot time it is typically in the morning when, during school, and it's a very popular activity in every single facility that is similar to us. Turf and court rental, this is our other sort of main area that the fees will be applied to. So this would be like if a basketball team wanted to reserve a court just for them to have practice, or a soccer team or whatever it is, and it would be kind of roped off and it would just be for their activity. And then birthday parties, we haven't figured out all the logistics on how that's working, but similar to what we do at the sports center, you reserve a space to put your cake and pizza, and then there'll be some organized activities or some space on the court or turf to play games. And then special events. This field house has been designed for recreation and events. And so being able to rent it out for, a market type event, a pie auction, a home show, a sports and rec show, that's another big aspect of what we're doing. So we kind of took just these main 5 categories and we'll flip through and talk about each one individually and I will stop and we'll ask questions and have a dialogue on each sort of main sport area before we move on. So first one is drop-in sports. Like I said, this will probably be our most common use. We do want to keep the field house affordable. That's been a mission from day one, but we need to recover some cost. So we've looked at a few different facilities. These are similar to us. The Diamond Park Field House in Juneau is all turf. It's just a soccer field, baseball field, whatever turf type of activity, but similar size. The Harry McDonald in Eagle River has an ice rink on one side and a turf field on the other with a walking track. And then the Kenai Rec Center is just as our neighbor to kind of have an example. We're suggesting a price of $5 to come in and play sports or walk on the track for adults, and then $3 for seniors and youth. And then there would be typically there's a punch card of some variety. Different communities do it different ways. Sometimes it's a monthly punch card, sometimes it's just 20 visit punch card, or a season pass. Right now, we're just looking at a 20 punches for a slightly reduced price. As you can see, it ends up being $4 and $2.50, I think. So kind of want to feel this out with you guys and see how, what your thoughts are on these suggestions on just this particular aspect of the fee structure.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
I don't really have any questions. I think from my perspective, this seems pretty good. This is about what I'd expect to pay. $5 for drop-in does seem like a lot, only because the last time I did drop in, it used to be like $2 and I'd pay in quarters. So I know that obviously prices for everything have gone up since I was a regular doing this type of thing. But I like the punch card idea. Looking in here where you kind of have, this layout where you're kind of thinking of what the configuration is going to be for different times of the year. It would be cool if you could do, like you mentioned, a season pass. So like, all right, I have a pass for when the turf is in, when it's all turf. And then when it goes to court, my pass doesn't work. You could do it like that. It could be cool. But some sort of membership, something would be a cool idea, because I think there are going to be people that are going to be wanting to be there regularly enough to where paying $5 every time would be annoying. So I can, like a gym where you can scan a thing or punch a card, whatever. But I know for me, I'd buy a soccer pass and I'd go whenever I could, right when the turf is in. So, and would that be, I could access anything? I guess there's only one thing at a time, I guess. So if it was in a time where it was a dual configuration, it's just $5 to go in the door and do whatever you choose to do.
That's what we're thinking right
Okay.
now. So if part of it is court and maybe there's pickleball net set up, and then part of it is court and has basketball, and then part of it's turf for, a little soccer game or whatever, if you're 2 years old and you just want to run around, or the walking track, like it would be just a flat rate. Now, programming would be different. So if we were running a futsal league, you might sign up for that, and that would be a separate fee. That wouldn't be a drop-in activity.
Right.
Are there any other questions? I like to wait to be last.
Are they able to purchase them online now? Any of the passes?
The software that we're about ready to use has the capacity for online purchases. We can do punch cards. We're not really sure how to work the yearly or monthly or seasonal pass. That's why we didn't add that. It is something that it's on our list, because I think there is especially for the walking track, if you just pay $200 for the year and you don't have to think about it, you can just show up and walk. That's pretty enticing. And I think there's a way that we'll be able to pull something off like that.
Okay, and I have a question. The punch cards, will they have the person's name on it, or will there probably won't be a picture, but I know with skiing, people pass passes to back and forth, and so it's a little bit different with us. Well, maybe it's not different with the ski slope, but I know people do it. So that's one of my questions, and I had it earlier. I mean, I thought about it when I was looking at the different configurations. And I like the idea of a season punch card, or that would be difficult, but a sort of a pass if we can work that in there. Can people, when they had a pass like this, they could come and go? But if they didn't have a pass, how would you know that a person left and came back? I mean, they could go in the morning and then come back and then go and come back. And so I thought about that when I read this whenever I read it, last night, I think, or this morning. So, and I don't know if there's an answer for that.
We haven't thought of that yet. Thanks, Benny.
I'm sorry. It's just me.
No, that's a valid question that we will explore. Currently, our passes for pickleball and things like that, you can share it with a friend. So, if as long as you're you're the original pass holder, you can let your friend in for a punch off your card.
Oh, you
Yeah.
can, okay.
Um,
Something like that, or like
it doesn't.
sorry, I was gonna say like a family pass would be a
Mhm.
cool idea, because you imagine I'm gonna only be going here. I'm taking my 2 kids every time. Could we get yeah, that would make sense.
Yep.
Yeah, I like the idea of a family pass. If it
Mhm.
works. I don't like the idea of me being able to share. I'm not good.
Well, I know like at some gyms that do like where you scan the barcode thing,
Yeah,
it'll say you do what you're talking about. Like I went in the morning, worked out, left, came back, scanned again. I don't think it charges you double. I think it just recognizes that you're scanned in twice in the same day. So I don't know if that's something within the system that could work too, but that would solve that problem.
mhm. And then the other question I have, the sports can happen in in the 3 areas simultaneously. The separation between them, there's not a wall or anything. What if my soccer ball goes over right in the middle of somebody's, whatever they're doing, soccer game? Is
There'll be a curtain in between the 3 court areas.
There will be. I
Yep.
thought there might be something. Okay,
Yep.
because if I went, the soccer ball could go anywhere.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Are there any more questions from anybody else? Seeing none? You want to go on?
There is a version of this in a couple locations where, the 20 pass gets a discount, and then the yearly pass gets another discount. And so if you're a frequent flyer, maybe it's not $5, maybe it ends up being like $2 by the time if you buy the bigger pass. And those are areas that we're exploring too. But I appreciate that, or the thoughts. Cool. Let's look at tot time. Similar concepts as drop in. This is just a little bit more organized. As you can see in the photos, it's a lot of times there's bikes and trikes and bounce houses and games for the kids. This we're gearing at $5 per team of parent and kid to get in, and then there would be a punch card. And I don't remember what we decided, if it was 2 parents, 1 kid, or we kind of went all over the place. I don't think we decided. Because what if you had 5 kids and 2 adults? Would it be $5 or would it be $10? I don't remember what we decided. Yeah.
We talked to some of our neighboring communities and they told us what they do, and it seems like a lot of times it's case by case. So we're gonna try to avoid that and try to avoid the gray area without locking ourselves in a bubble of, if you have 5 kids, you have to pay $25 plus your 3 adults, and grandma shows up halfway through. And yeah, we haven't organized that fully yet.
Mhm.
You could maybe make it that adults are free.
Yeah, per
Just because-
kid, and you could do like per kid and do a cap. So if you bring, you're only ever gonna pay for $15 because it's 3 kids, but whoever adult is with them is always gonna be free.
Right.
Well, and you don't want to price it out for big families. I mean, I had 9 kids. There's no way I could afford that. There's no way. Food or go play at a field house? Yeah, no. shoes, field house, you know, I mean, you have a lot of kids, you're not gonna be, that's not gonna be a priority. So, I mean, doing a family pass, I love the idea of a family pass. And I think that's an
I think
incredible
that's a good
idea.
idea. You know, if you figure out the family pass and it's over a certain number of kids, that might be a real nice benefit. And I agree with what, Annette said. That's, you know. As long as they're your own kids, you know, I'd probably try to bring all the kids in the neighborhood. Just kidding.
But we,
Must be blood relatives in order to make a family.
but we do have a lot of big families on the peninsula. I mean, 6 or more is not unusual.
Yep.
Really, I mean, it's pretty normal, so.
Yeah, I agree. I think tot time, at least I took my daughter to tot time at the Kenai Rec a bunch. And kind of the clientele you generally see is like mom or dad who's with the kids who aren't in school. So
Mhm.
yeah, you might have 9 kids, but you're not always going to take them all at the same time because tot time is in the day when school age children aren't going to be there.
Mhm.
So I think there's whatever the number is to make it, to cover the costs, cap it at that, and you can bring 20 kids. You're only going to pay whatever the cap is. I think that would make a lot of sense.
Are there any other questions? Okay.
Have you checked out the, maybe this has already been answered, but have you checked out the Sterling Community Center and what they do? Is that in here at all? I don't.
We did. They didn't have a ton of overlap with the activities that we would be able to provide. They had sort of some open gym time. A lot of their stuff is just free to go in and play. So it wasn't a ton of overlapping of
Because I
or
remember,
comparisons.
yeah, I remember when because we live out there, and I remember when my kids were younger, and it was like top of our budget that we could afford it.
Mhm.
So, and I don't remember what the family pass was back then, but I do remember they had a family pass, and then it was a number of kids and then a number of adults. So I don't know. It's an idea.
I think the hardest part about this whole process for us has been every single facility is different and every single facility has like the most elaborate, crazy system of like, if you have 2 kids, but one's 4 feet tall and one's 12 feet tall, then it's only $10. And it was just like trying to figure out how to simplify it has been a challenge. But there is going to be a lot of refinement and case by case situations where we want to like have a game plan for each option if possible.
As we're looking at this, what is our youth cutoff? Do we have an age where it's like 12 and under is youth? Or is that undecided?
For youth, I think we were kind of going school age.
So as long as you're under 18, you're going to be a youth?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm.
Kenai, I might be wrong on this, but I think Kenai does high school graduation. So once you graduate, then you become an adult.
I think I don't know what it is now, but I think at the rec center long ago, if you were a high school kid to work out in the gym, cost you more than if you were a high school kid like going to open gym. There was some system like that, and I don't remember exactly. But again, that just complicates things.
Kids can vote at 18, right?
Mhm.
So they're not really considered youth. I
Mhm.
mean, they really aren't. It's 17. And I hate to be a spoiler, but I think they should vote at 16.
Speaking of Kenai and youth, one of the challenges that Kenai Rec has is that it is free for teens or for youth to go shoot hoops and play basketball or whatever. And they'll get 15 to 20, 13, 14, 15-year-olds over there unsupervised with one staff. And it's a pretty overwhelming challenge. It's great to have a free space for kids to go, but we lean towards some fee as just an accountability piece. And that was kind of one of the main thought processes behind the $3, or with the punch cards, it ends up being like $2. But there is that fine line in there where we want people to be able to come play, every single person, but like we can't have 500 kids running around unsupervised either. And that's what we could have. Mhm.
Joe,
That's your everyday.
Joel, will there be like the Boys and Girls Club in Kenai? Will there be activities for them here? Or are you leaving that in Kenai and what do they charge?
Yeah, currently we're not trying to compete with any
Like after school
organization.
care or
Yeah.
anything like that, yeah.
Mm. Tentative plan is to do some summer camps because that's a demand regardless of Boys and Girls Club or not. They've got a waiting list. And so not in year one, but in the near future, we would do some sort of camp in the summer, a variety of sports camps. But we definitely don't want to compete with private gyms or local nonprofits. We just want to support them if there's space to support or fill in gaps that these groups might not be able to do. Nobody's got turf, so I feel like that's a market that we have that we can add to our community rec. So moving
And
on.
if you do sports camps, will it be just local kids or will you allow out-of-state kids? And the reason I say that is
Asking for
because
a
my
friend?
grandkids come every summer. And, it's nice to have something for them to go do sports-wise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we've really gotten into the weeds on sports camps yet, but I envision a version where it's a local group of kids coming and doing arts and crafts and having lunch and playing kickball. But then I also see a version where like a competitive basketball camp where there's 200 kids from around the state that come and sleep in Soldotna and, play basketball for 12-hour days for the week. Cause that's what I did growing up. And that's a moneymaker for our community. And so, but I would like to find a balance in there where it's some version of just, free for all kind of summer campy style, but also,
Day camp.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm picturing kids in sleeping bags sleeping on the track.
Yep.
And have a 2 or 3 day basketball camp and
Yep.
sleep on the track and go down and play. That'd be sweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be nice if it was mostly the local kids who were here or family members. Because otherwise you would get all the people who are coming up outside with their motorhomes who are gonna drop the kids off.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, if
Which
it's
isn't a
day
bad
camp.
idea.
Yeah, what's the idea for the
Yeah.
parents who live here too? Is it's a
Right.
place for your kid to go when
Yeah.
school's in session.
Yeah, but I
so.
mean, I'd like to see the community have, the kids have that first dibs, because some of those kids never get to go to an overnight camp. They don't get to travel. I mean, there's quite a few kids that don't get some of the things other kids get, that are in your own community. Not that we shouldn't exclude people who are not in our community. I'm not saying that. I just know there's a lot of kids that need that time. Yeah, local kids.
I have a question on the special event rentals.
Women.
Can we
Well,
get,
there you
Yeah,
go.
let's
can we
wait.
get through the other two real quick?
Sure. Yep, sure.
Last thought on that, and you guys can chime in at, today or some other day. A lot of people do an out of city or an out of county rate, and then an in city or in county, depending on who the funding or who the managing organization is for their rec facilities. We've never played around with that, but that is an idea that could happen if we all wanted that, where it was an in-town, out-of-town, similar to North Penn Rec. Their funding source is a little bit different, and that's why they have a different rate for locals versus non-locals. Ours is not funded very much by property taxes in the city of Soldotna. It'll be funded mostly by sales tax because that's whatever 98% of our operating budget comes from sales tax. So we don't have that same jurisdiction, but it's something to think about.
That's an interesting point because it would be tough if you do go Soldotna only,
Mhm.
because then I think it would be like Central Peninsula maybe gets a discounted
Mhm.
rate, and if you're outside Central Peninsula, because it would be tough because where's the line on K Beach? Like
Mhm.
what, you know what I mean? Like it becomes very tricky.
Yep, that's why we've never
I don't hate that idea. Because you get people that are going to be fishing here in the summer, and they're going to be, I got up at 6 to go fish, and now I need a shower or whatever.
Yep.
That might make sense. Because I know the rec center gets overrun with people that come in dip net, and their $3 shower or whatever.
Mhm.
It would help their custodial budget if they charged more for stuff like that.
I like that idea as well, that when you talk about the county, this general location, I think those people are if they're like on Kasilof or, one of our close areas, I think that's within our jurisdiction.
When this was the argument long ago where people like, how do we fund this? Sales tax makes sense because anybody who comes into Soldana is going to, I mean, whether you shop at Fred Meyer or whatever, you're going to be contributing to it. So it's not just Soldana people. It might be mostly, but
Mm.
I don't know where you guys grocery shop, but
Mhm.
you're going to be moving around.
Yep. Cool. Let's jump through the next couple because they're kind of repetitive. Walking track is similar to drop-in activity. The $5, $3 plus punch cards. Couple areas that we can play around with. Some communities have a free time of day for seniors to walk for free. And so maybe it's a 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. or something. You can
like
see that
that.
Menard does 7:30 to 9 a.m. is free for seniors. We could play around with something like that if we wanted. We're also in conversations with different organizations in town to maybe help sponsor youth or seniors, so that maybe there's a blanket sponsorship from somebody that could cover the cost of all kids to walk or
And then they
whatever,
like get a
or-
banner up in the.
Mhm. So
that's
we're
a
kind of
really good
playing around
idea.
with a few different options. None of that is locked in. We kind of went with a general feeling of a similar price at this point in time.
I really like the idea of a free section. It doesn't have to be very long. Whatever, I think even 7 to 10 might be longer than it needs to be. But
Mhm.
just like that early morning, if you want to do this for free, you totally can. Get up early because there's probably not going to be any programming or anything at that time anyways. So I like
Yep.
that idea a lot. I like the idea of sponsorships too. I think that's a good idea for not just this type of stuff, like walking or whatever, but when you get towards like events and stuff like that too, that could make a lot of sense.
Yeah, especially the walking track. It seems like there's all ages there walking on that track. I don't know how much they're doing now. I haven't gone. I used to go all the time, but I like the fact that people will support that, and you'll have that for money that you can put in the coffers to keep on building. But I do love the idea of sponsorships, and maybe if there's a free time in the morning, especially early. Some people like to get up at 7 and be done by 9 or 9:30 or something like that. I know a lot of people who do that. Okay.
Cool. Turf time, this is another one that we've sort of struggled with. When the entire facility is turfed, we'll have about a 200 by 100 foot playing surface, which is similar in size to the current hockey rink that we have. So if you've ever been out ice skating, that's how big the turf field will be. We went low on this on purpose because our community that, our soccer, our baseball, our softball community has never had to pay for turf before because we've never had it in the peninsula. And so we wanted to start low, make it affordable. Anchorage is high. It's $200 for the dome. Out of state, it's $250 easily or more. But you can see the Wasilla facility is $170, and then Harry McDonald's $150, and Diamond Park and Juneau is $25. So we want to keep it as cheap as possible, but still having some sort of fee. And this would be predominantly, a high school soccer team that wanted to practice in April and May and June or whatever before the snow melts. So they would be looking at this type of fee. In comparison, the high school hockey team currently rents ice, and they're at $210 or $220 an hour over at the sports center. So it's much cheaper, but there is another example of a local sports team that is fundraising to pay for practice facility.
Well, and that fundraising probably comes in really handy. And I think all the teams do that. I do like the fact that the turf will be available for sports players who play soccer, because I've seen over the years, just watching my son play soccer, that the kids up in Anchorage and elsewhere have that inside turf. They didn't always have it, And they have other places. I forget the one that Brett goes to play soccer inside, but, and he's an adult now, some days.
Mike was on for that one.
But I think I'm really excited. I was probably more excited about some of this with the turf for other people too, you know, the different things, but soccer especially, it really gives those kids the feeling that they can keep up and go further all the time. Because sometimes you can't get on the fields down here, especially up at Skyview. And I mean, sometimes they're like underwater.
I was there today. It was very wet outside. I'm into the low because I understand. Because if you're talking 125 an hour, if I'm a high school soccer team or high school baseball team or whatever, practice is generally speaking going to be 2 hours long. So I'm looking at $250 a session. If I'm doing 5 days a week, I'm paying $1,250 a week for practice, which is doable. But I would envision for like myself, we'd probably be looking at like maybe 2 or 3 days of the week that we're going to actually commit to being on the turf and then have our gym space for whatever's left. And what if I want an hour and a half? What do I pay? Or do I have to do by full round hours, or is it flexible?
Yeah, right now ice is 15-minute increments.
Okay.
So we would probably do something similar.
Okay.
What we wouldn't want is to get, and then the same thing with our ice schedule is we don't want to have wasted time somewhere where it's not very rentable. You know,
Right.
if you left 15 minutes of turf, that's not, you know, in between two different user groups, that's just a wasted 15 minutes. So we'd be strategic on that.
So as far as transition time would go, so say my practice is ending, another practice is going to start. Any time that we need to transition is got to be on our time that we're pulling our goals or whatever, we're moving our stuff. There's not going to be any built-in time between sessions. That's how the dome does it. It's hectic, but it functions. You just have to be prepared.
Yep.
So
I haven't thought that far. On ice, we do 15 minutes because that's what we're driving the Zamboni.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it just depends on if it's two soccer teams and they're using the same equipment, then
no big deal.
no big deal. If it's
Baseball, we got to set up
Yeah.
the batting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so, there is always, whenever you're renting or running a facility like this, there's always a, you know, kind of a cleanup
Yeah.
time that's allowed for staff to regroup and rearrange as needed.
I've been rolling with the 220 to 250 has been the number in my mind. So 125 sounds good to me.
Oh man! All right.
Yeah. So as I've been talking to people and they've been asking me this question, I've been about 200-ish is kind of the answer I've given them. So to come in under that is a good thing. But yeah, I hate fundraising, so I got to get on that. It's my
I'm
least
good
favorite
at it.
part.
I'll give you some ideas.
I would love that.
On the bottom of the paragraph, it said most facilities offer full turf and half turf. Does that mean that one side of the is half turf? And I'm confused.
I think it means you could have two user groups split it at the same time.
Oh,
So
and
we
you
drop the
split one
curtain.
another, or you
No.
play-
Joel and I are coaching two teams. We drop the curtain. My team plays over here. His team plays over there. So
Mhm.
then you only pay the reduced rate because you don't
in-
have
in
access.
one- In one of the three areas, two teams would be in
Hmm.
one area, so you could theoretically have 6 teams there?
No.
No, okay.
In turf, you have two, and there's one curtain that will break it in half. When it's a court, you'll have 3 courts,
Okay,
and
I see.
you'll have three areas to play
Okay,
on.
see, I would think big and
Hmm.
little, all right.
Yep, and that's similar. KPHA does that with their little kids.
Mhm.
They rent an hour of ice, split it in half, so that way they have 2 teams. Pretty normal.
Would there be like a participant restriction on that hourly rental? Say I'm going to rent it for an hour and I'm bringing 200 kids. Like that probably would be a no-go, right?
Yes, yeah, we'll make that policy.
Right. So I'm sure there has to be a caveat in there somewhere. Okay. What would it be like 50? 40 to 40 people I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, if you, by the time you're renting the entire turf, you basically got the whole building-ish.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of auxiliary space for extra kids to hide.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking at like 40-ish. It's like a high school soccer team.
Mhm.
Baseball team is going to be closer to like 25, 30, maybe. Hmm. Okay.
You could
And-
take those 3 areas and have 3 different teams working with 40 kids, right? You could have.
If I paid for the whole space, I'm
you
sure they
paid
could
for
drop the
whole
curtain,
spade.
Mhm.
for us. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Or similarly, if you paid
Yeah.
for the whole space, you could divide it in half and have 2
Too.
events simultaneously happening. Yeah.
Yep. Almost the last one is courts. Same idea. Like we kind of pointed out, when it's a court material, hardwood floor, we'll have 3 courts to play on, whether it's futsal, volleyball, basketball, pickleball, whatever. And we don't see a version where you're going to rent all 3 courts for a sport activity, but there might be a reason why, if it's like a homeschool PE class, and you want to have a big kickball game or something. But mostly it's going to be a single court rental, and we were suggesting $50, which is kind of the going rate. It's Kenai's rate. It's cheaper than a school district gym,
Yes.
but it fits right in with Mount Jumbo is run by the Parks Department. North Penn is the borough. And then some of the other ones that we saw up in Anchorage were similar price.
And the gymnasiums for KPBSD generally are held for students, and there's not a fee on that from the team, is it?
It depends on the organization. So say it's like so high basketball after school, you're not
Mhm.
paying for the gym.
That's
But
right.
if it's like, KPZSC needs to rent the gym, they are charging. Are these the updated ones? Because they did just raise these prices too. The district just raised the building use
If
fees.
you're using it and bringing in lots of different kids, not just your team.
Right. So like Peninsula Wild Volleyball
Yeah.
wants to rent and have their practices at
Mhm.
whatever school. They raised that rate due to custodial costs
Mhm.
because it is astronomical. So
Yep.
I can envision renting all 3 courts actually. I could see like you do a camp or you do something
Mhm.
like that. I could see renting all 3. Or even if I'm so high basketball, I would consider renting all 3 because then I can have my JV, my varsity, my C team can all practice at the same time. So rather than buying 4 hours of time, we're gonna buy 2 and run everybody at the same time.
Mhm. All right, birthday parties. We won't talk about this too much because it's pretty convoluted. But there is a concept where you can rent the party room, and then a court, and it can be a package deal. A lot of the other people, you have these add-ons like a bounce house, more room. We don't see a version where we're decorating and cooking pizza for you. We don't do that at the hockey rink. A lot of other people do. It's just an add-on cost. I think the only real add-on that McKalen kind of found was if we facilitated activities for your kids. And so we would have our recreation staff running, PE games or whatever for your kids. There could be some add-on things like that that's like minimal because that staff is going to be there anyways. And then birthday parties, schedule wise, we haven't really figured that out. We obviously don't want them in the middle of ruining a renter that's going to do 3 courts. And so there'll be times of the day, most likely on the weekends, where birthday party rentals are available, or during the day when most of the kids are at school and it's a little bit more open. But any questions on that? I kind of just went through it fast.
I had a couple of little questions.
Mhm.
The birthday party, is it $100? And what's the number of kids in that limit? If you have it at, is this one you set up differently? You didn't put the
Mhm.
monies in there. And so I was trying to figure it out. And, I had several questions. The time of day for the party, is that 7 days a week? Some places just do it Saturday, some people just do it in the evening. So the number of the days of the week, I wondered which days you were gonna do it. Somebody suggested they only did it one day, it was on a Saturday, wasn't it? When I read.
That hasn't been worked out,
Okay.
but the way we do it at the rink is that it happens only during public skate, and so that way it does not take away from
So just
a
paying.
possible full rental, somebody paying the full rate.
You'll have a party, you'll have a birthday party room, you'll have a size. How many kids? Could I bring 100 kids?
Nah, there's max capacity. We just, it's open space right now. We don't really know how big it's gonna be,
Okay.
once you get
Yeah,
tables
I
and
was
chairs in there.
being wise guy, but I did want to know how many kids could be in there because that could be hazardous. And the size of a party in this, you mentioned $50. No, that's the community room does a $50 thing. So you
These
have
are
a
different
2-hour party,
communities,
these
yeah.
are different ones. So you're not sure really, you have a $50 hour birthday party room plus individual admission. So you have two different ones. The
Correct.
top one's 100 and the bottom one was 50. It would just depend on the number of kids and
And also if you wanted private court space
okay, that's.
is the $100 version.
Okay.
If you don't care who else is, if random kids join your kickball game, then you could do a different version where it's, and we're trying to find an option that's affordable for people.
Okay.
So it's $50 for the court and it's another 50 for the room.
Mhm.
That makes
Yeah,
perfect sense.
okay, that makes sense. I didn't put that together when I was doing this. All right,
And
thank you.
there's definitely room to work on that one. It's just
And the
it's
birth-
another program that's pretty common for these
And the
facilities.
birthday kid is free, right?
That's our vote. I don't know. You guys have an opinion?
I think so. We already voted. No.
Okay. All right, let's spend a little bit of time on special events. We currently charge $2,500 for the ice arena, plus about a $650 move-in, move-out day. Move-in, move-out day is no general public. This is like when the event staff are there. You're obviously consuming the space, and we can't use it for anything else. But it's not when people are there and using the bathrooms, and I have to have additional staff. So that's why those rates are there. Similar size facility. You can see down the Harry McDonald, the Alaska Sports Complex, Menard. Those are similar, but way more.
Mhm.
I think Menard is probably our most similar facility size wise, and they're 3,000 a day for their turf area plus 2,000 for a move in, move out. So we, being on the Kenai Peninsula that sometimes doesn't want to pay for things, we decided to keep our rates the same at both facilities, except for a little bit more on the move in, move out.
So the move in, move out, do they move in and move out, or do you move them in and out and charge
It's
them?
like they're bringing in their tables and their chair, whatever they're going to do for
They're-
the
they're
event.
bringing all their
So
own
it's
stuff.
graduation and they have to come and decorate or whatever.
Okay.
You get
Yep.
that day to do
Mhm.
it.
That
So
would
like,
the school districts too, wouldn't it? It's like, I know Sohi,
Oh,
and
we're
they
gonna-
haven't lately, but they did have their graduation in Sohi a couple of times, because I usually
Mhm.
go to it. They're charged, aren't they, or not? That's what I
Mhm.
thought, okay.
that's pretty common. I mean,
Yeah.
Home Show has 2 days of move in because they're setting up all the pipe and drape, the power, the Kenai River Classic has 2 or 3 days of move in because all the auction items and the decorations. It just depends. Like Soup Supper doesn't care. They're not wasting time on decorations, so they just roll in, do their event, and roll out. So it kind of just depends on what people need.
$25 or $2,500 a day is cheap,
Mhm.
realistically, when you
Mhm.
think about it.
Are you gonna be running events simultaneously? Do you anticipate, or are you just gonna have the ice, that's it?
Our hope and dream is that all events are moved to the field house. and that there is not events on the ice. Now, if we're down to concrete, I'm open to events over there. We're moving away from covering the ice. It's very, very time consuming. And it's a strain. Our record is 7 times in 1 year we've put the ice down. That was with crews working a regular shift and then a midnight shift to put the floors down, sleeping for an hour, getting back up and going to another shift. This is before my time. I have decided that I would like to do less of these. And so I want most of my events over there. Could be a hockey game and an event in the field house, but the parking lot is designed to accommodate both. And obviously we wouldn't double book, a playoff hockey game and the home show on the same day at the same time, because those 2 events would conflict with parking. Luckily, one is during the day and one's in the evening. So
these would adjust the ice, the sports complex to be the same as the field house? The fees would, the move in, move out fees would be the same? So your fee schedule for both buildings is going to be the same to rent it out?
we haven't gotten that far, but yeah, that's something that we've been talking about. These are
makes sense.
specific to the field house, but
Right.
we, charging $600 because you think about it, like you take 2 days to set up your decorations. That's 2 days that kids aren't playing hoops. That's 2 days that people aren't doing birthday parties. There's a lot of time and energy that people could be using that facility. And so we want people to, pick and choose their decisions. So it has the least amount of impact on the user groups.
Which one is harder to do? The ice arena, right?
Well, right now, because we've never done the field house.
Oh,
They're still building it, I think.
Yeah.
This
Min-
makes sense. This looks good to me. I mean, I would even consider charging more per day and per
which one, both of them?
for both of them. Yeah,
Mhm.
for
I
whatever
think
the
so, too.
price is going to be, I consider even bumping the per day to like 3,000, and you could charge 1,500 for your per day moving. I mean, if you don't need to, then don't, obviously. But if that is a thing, people will pay it if they're going to have an event. Just not a lot of other competing options. So
Mhm.
if it's what it costs to do, it's what it costs to do.
I think part of keeping it low as well was that there was no other place for these nonprofits to go. So they've been budgeting year after year to pay the sports center cost what it is. And even though we could charge them more, I think part of it was that, we ease them into we're forcing them into the new facility. So they don't have a choice for the ice anymore.
That makes sense. Listen, I want to keep it as low as we
Yeah.
can, but realistically, I think you could probably get away with charging more and people wouldn't have a cow. I mean, some people would, but
What do you charge now? Just for the ice, for that?
For an event on
Mhm.
top of the ice,
Yeah.
2,500.
2,500. So I hear what you're saying. You could go to 26 or 28 if you wanted to, or you could start there for the first year and test it out. Because I know some nonprofits have that issue, but there are other people who will be renting it who can afford it. So the balance between those two might be something to look at. And so I'm not saying you should put it up for people who are nonprofits or whatever, or just everybody, but I do think it's something to consider because, I mean, it might bring people down the first year and you might have a lot of traffic coming in and out, and maybe that will make the money and provide opportunities for people if it was at 2,500. But the only person I see that's lower than that is Eagle River, and theirs is not compared to ours at all. And so you have to look at the comparison along with what you're offering and what you expect people to pay. So I'm kind of in a tough spot in my mind because I do think there'll be people that if it's 3,000 or 3,500, that'll be tough for them
yeah.
right now. But maybe you could consider like 2,650 or 28 or whatever and just see how that goes. Or this could be the starting point and you could say, this is just a test.
I would
and we'll
probably
Figure it out when we go.
I'd probably start higher and reduce than start lower and raise prices. But realistically, you could also think about it as per situation. Cause like, okay, we have a nonprofit who's coming in to do like a charity event. And then we have someone who's coming to do a for-profit event. You could take it case by case and like, okay, or whatever, however you want to draw those distinctions. So.
You have to check into that, though. Is there, if you're offering one group one thing, I mean, I don't know.
We
Then
went
I
away
looked at it.
from nonprofit rates or reductions, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, because it
Mhm.
became, if the city's gonna give one organization a discount, then we got to do them all. And so we opted to keep, I think even for the arena rate, I don't think that's changed in like 30 years. I think it's been 2,500 for a long time. And with inflation, that means we're definitely not making any money.
Yeah.
The other thing before I let others people jump in is some of these events rented for 4 to 6 days. So you raise the rates, and that bill, like currently their bills are, $8,000, $12,000 for a multi-day event. Now you're going to push them closer to 20. That could be a game changer for
Deal
them.
breaker,
So,
yeah.
but those are just things to think about.
Are there any other questions?
I really like the rates just because, just from an event coordinator standpoint, from the Wednesday market, I try to keep my prices low just because it will eliminate those small businesses from participating in something that could be really beneficial to their pocketbook if it gets too high, and I mean, if I was to rent this, I'd have to charge, what would it be if and you're always taking a risk that you're not going to get enough vendors. So if I had 20 vendors and I only charged them 150 for the day, which, I mean, that's not gonna cover the cost of anything really. And so it just depends on the event, I guess. So I like the 2,500. I don't think that's bad for what being inside and bathrooms and warm and
It's cheap.
I don't think it's bad at all, but it keeps it, keeps it competitive for all of our small businesses in this town, I think.
So if you had people come from out of town, could that be a difference? Could you charge $27.50?
I don't know that would be worth it if it's somebody out of town. You have to make the rate difference enough to make it viable to do. Otherwise, keep it straight across the board.
Otherwise, I might get offended. Kind of in line with that as far as I'm for raising the rate and the reason, and again, like this gentleman said, start high, go low. You can always come down from it. I doubt that you would, but if you come up with a fair rate across the board, nobody gets reductions, even though it'd be nice to give some when you want to. Because understanding that those people, when they come in to use this facility, they will raise their prices to accommodate, just like a landlord does. If if everybody's charging $1,000 and your units are at 400, you're going to get not so good tenants, first of all, and you've got to raise your costs.
Organizations will pass
They will
they are going to pass the cost of renting this facility on to their participants. So like I know between Homer United Soccer Club and Kenai Peninsula Soccer Club, Homer's fees I think are more, partly because they include in part of your fee the rental of the Spark or the rental of the gyms or whatever space they're going to rent. So it's going to be passed on to the participants that are consuming it, which makes sense. But you're right. They will, whatever the price is, they'll pass it along to whoever's playing.
So it's not personal, it's just,
I did want to add that nonprofits wouldn't pass that cost along. So that's something to consider if there's nonprofits that are used to paying this. If you're planning on increasing it, just communicate that and put a change management plan out saying we're going to increase it to X amount. So please plan accordingly for next year's budget. So.
That's why I guess I think if we did increase it, I don't think we should increase it by that much. You can always balance things if you need to later on with inflation. If your costs are more, then you have to have the cost for other people to come in to be more. So if it's not 2,500, maybe it could be 26 or 27. If, you could take a minimal amount that shows that you have put in a lot of work on an exceptional building that will provide opportunities that we've never had before at this level. And we need to pay for it to make sure that we stay above board and don't go below board. So but I want everybody to be able to be able to come into one of these places and offer those opportunities for people, especially kids.
How many events utilize the sports center right now?
Just the arena, large events,
Mhm.
is that what you're asking? I would say 6 to 8 a year. Some have come and gone.
And then do you anticipate that we'll have an increase in big events once we have more availability with the field house?
Yes and no. The hope and dream is to recruit more large events, conferences, whatever, steal some from Kenai if we can. But we'll talk about the schedule too, and this is a recreation facility also. And so I want to find a balance between events and user groups that are using it for sports. So I don't think we're going to have, it's not going to be a 365-day a year availability for events. We're going to limit those windows, which is going to limit the number of events that we're going to have.
I think the space itself also limit the type of event. Because if I'm doing an event that needs bleacher seating, that's not something that's going to be in this facility. So which I pick between the sports complex and the field house will depend on what I'm trying to do.
Correct.
Home show makes sense because they don't need the bleachers. But if we're doing a hockey game, whatever, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, we brought in the Stallions, 40 years ago. That was, yeah, it was like crazy horse stallions. Anybody here for that?
I went to it.
Yeah.
Did I go
In the
on-
sports center?
Yeah, it was packed. It was the 3rd largest attendance event we've ever had.
Probably was a mess to clean up.
Cool.
I have one question.
Yes.
And then I will be quiet.
Mhm.
It, maybe. The full day, that's from 8 AM to midnight? Is that on every event or just special event rentals? It's just special event rent. That's a long day.
Yeah, currently the way we do rentals is just you rent the day. Sometimes people are there at 2 a.m. decorating, it's like,
Oh.
it just depends on the logistics. Sometimes they pay for security and they're there 24 hours a day. Like,
Mhm, okay.
mhm.
Are there any more questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on.
So, yeah, so we have a motion on the table right now.
Okay, so is there a motion, repeated action 5, action items, number 5, to approve the proposed field house fee schedule as presented? May I have a motion?
You already have a motion in a
That's
second.
what I
That-
do, that's
Mhm.
what I do, so I don't have to do it
Yep,
again,
but we're
so.
just to the vote portion of
So
that.
I guess we can go ahead and vote, we've just discussed enough. This is different things.
It's okay.
So we're voting whether we approve this fee schedule
The
as a
recommended
proposed,
fee
As
proposal.
schedule. Yep.
proposed,
Unless there is any amendments that you guys
Right.
want to make.
okay. Okay. So, well, I'm gonna call for the vote.
Just do a roll call vote.
Mhm.
Dolphin,
Yes.
Via,
Yes.
Jutiel,
Yes.
Scudder,
Yes.
Hawker,
Yes.
Fadla,
Yes. Yes. So the votes are in and it's unanimous. And that brings us to item 6, reports from the Parks and Recreation Director.
All right, I'm not gonna read this word for word. That's why I got this out to you guys last week. So hopefully you guys had a chance to kind of look at the past 2 months directors reports. Couple highlights, staffing wise, we actually had a really good summer. We were able to fill almost all the positions, unlike the past 3 or 4 years. And the quality of applicants was pretty good. So that was very helpful. We had a good team out there this summer and got a lot done. Our gardening team, I think, was one of the best we've had in a long time. And if you've seen any of the flower beds out there, yeah, they've been working pretty hard. Sorry, I am looking at what else. Ice went back in. We started that in the last week of July. So the busiest 3 weeks of our life is July, did netting season. And on top of taking care of everybody else, we decided to take most of the team out of operation to make ice, which takes about 7 to 10 days. But we got it in and it went in well. And the hockey kids were able to practice for their tryouts. And then also the 4-H event happened prior to that. And that was a very successful. The 4-H event, they moved up 5 years ago from the fairgrounds to Soldotna, and they've grown and grown and grown and grown. They had a record year for their auction this year and raised over $100,000. And a majority of that product stays locally, either in families or I know like a lot of the grocery stores will buy it and put it out for sale. So that's pretty cool. Progress Days. I don't know if anybody went to Progress Days, but they changed the model. We moved it from the park to Parker Park. So that way you could participate in the parade and then ride your bike over to the event. And everything we heard was it was a very well received event. People enjoyed that they could walk to it and ride their bikes to it. And we'll just keep adding different activities to that. McKeelan revealed our logoed mobile recreation trailer. This is a trailer we bought a couple years ago, filled it with ice skates in the winter, filled it with games and activities in the summer. And so we brought all those games and activities to Progress Days and had them out for everybody to play. So there's a lot of cornhole and pickleball happening. Anything else? Yeah, just trying to find a balance. It's the field house construction has been exciting and a challenge for us. Trying to have events in our space while they're ripping up our parking lot and repaving. Every day you come to work, you never know exactly where you're allowed to go and not go. The cones get moved in the middle of the night. So that's been a challenge, but also exciting. I don't know if you guys have been over there recently. Almost all of the walls are up, and they're putting some more the beams up right now. It's pretty cool to see how big it is. So definitely go stand and stare at it. Just don't get too close. That's kind of the highlights. Any questions or wanted more information on anything that were on the July and August reports?
Are there any questions or comments? I think you answered all my questions. And the only thing I wanted to say about the field house construction, you mentioned here that it is incredible to see it actually happening after so many years of community leaders meeting, talking, and dreaming of an indoor recreation facility. And the only thing I could come up with was, yes, the dream is occurring right before our eyes, and it's because of all the people who've been involved and from the leadership that we have had and we currently have. So I have seen it several times. I keep forgetting to take pictures because I get so excited and then I leave and I go, well, you forgot a picture again, but it's okay. So you can see the changes as we go. So, and then the success of the Progress Days, it was, I didn't go over till very late because I forget what we were doing, Caitlin and I and the baby, but all of a sudden we realized we didn't go. So we missed almost all of it. And we were there just to eat the last taco that was there pretty much. and walk around. And it was kind of fun just talking to some of the people that we saw there who were still there. So I like your way of thinking about moving it over there, the whole team, or if it was just you. It made a difference. I could see how, even though we weren't there when it was the busy time, I could see how happy people were who were still tearing down things, that they had a good day. So are there any other comments or questions? Yes, thank you.
I just wanted to comment that I live close in that area, and going by there and having that fence taken down made a huge difference. That was a big positive.
Yeah.
And just kind of bringing life to that area right there. It's a beautiful area. We've had it for a long time, and see it in use to it, full use was great. So I appreciate that. I'm sure the community does.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I can talk about this ridiculously colored, chaotic schedule too. I apologize for the color vomit. This is something that we've been playing around with since the beginning. We've mapped out all of the local youth sports, and whether it's Boys and Girls Club, high school, Pop Warner, the comp soccer, the wrestling, kind of to figure out where these kids are going to be at during these different seasons and where we might be able to fill some gaps. We're thinking that we're going to be able to provide a futsal league. Futsal is played on a court surface, and to match up with the Anchorage futsal league season, they typically go mid-October to December. And so we could kind of piggyback off of that and maybe be able to play some friendly tournaments or competitions, or actually go up and play. And they do a state cup for futsal. So that's an area that we think we could facilitate. And then I think there's room for a flag football league for both kids and adults, and that would be a January, February timeframe. The Dome provides a similar thing. If you watch football at all right now, the NFL is all over flag football. They're sponsoring flag football leagues all over every city. It's going to be an Olympic sport in a couple of years, and so I think there's room for that. North Penn did it a couple of years ago with some success, and I think just being able to play indoors on the turf will be pretty cool. I designed the turf to be the right size to do a 7-on-7 flag football league. And I also designed the courts bigger than basketball courts so that they would be regulation futsal size. So you can tell where my priorities are.
Should have been a soccer.
With figuring out when and how we want to move this court and turf, as you guys know, this is going to be 3 layers of flooring. We'll have concrete on the base. We'll have the proposed plan is a wood removable court surface. This is a wood surface that you would see at like a college basketball game or an NBA basketball game, where they might play basketball, one night, rip it up, play hockey the next night, put it back down, have a concert. It's the same product. And then on top of that would be turf. I don't want to move this stuff every day. And so we're trying to find a way that we might be able to limit the times that we're moving the turf, and definitely moving the court, because that's going to be the most annoying time period. So we're kind of looking at different seasons. The first one being a turf only season, maybe from January to mid-April. That's the first part of your page in the green. This would be all 3 areas would be turf only. This would accommodate our flag football league. It would accommodate rugby, ultimate frisbee, and then preseason practice for our high school soccer club, our teams, and our baseball softball teams. Then in mid-April to mid-May, historically, that's our big event season. That would happen in the ice arena, and now it's going to be in the field house. So we might go down to concrete during those 4 weeks and host the home show, the sports and rec show, safari club, and whoever else wants to do an event on concrete. So that would be very limited. during that time frame for other activities. Walking could still happen, but we're not going to throw down anything else for sports. Pickleball, we could still do some things. I don't know. We can get creative. Oh, that's when we're going to put our pump track in there and our skateboard ramps.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
Remember the picture last time when that pump track? Well, it just landed in Anchorage, and it took an extra several months to get out of Denmark or wherever it came from, but it is in Anchorage. So coming,
What does that go in?
I don't know. I'm off topic
You're
right now.
okay.
I'm just really excited. After the big event season, during the summer, we imagine that this would be camp season and pickleball season. We have a lot of people traveling and visiting that play pickleball. They bring their paddles with them. So we feel like probably 3 courts with no turf available, it would make sense here. And then in the fall, we're proposing maybe 2 basketball courts and 1 turf to allow some flexibility. And so that would, we don't imagine, Boys and Girls Club basketball moving over to our facility because they have their own gyms and we would have to charge them, and that would be a deterrent to their leagues. But we do see comp basketball and comp volleyball possibly renting space. And just, if the high school team just wanted to come play pickup basketball, like that's great. They pay their $3 or whatever and come shoot hoops. And we want to be able to provide those pickup opportunities for all these user groups too. So that's the tentative plan. And we really wanted to kind of talk it through with you guys because we realize like every single person that dreams about this field house has a different dream. And maybe they want only turf all the time and they're not going to get that. And so we're kind of trying to find a middle ground and what makes sense for our sports leagues, but then also our community needs. So any comments or thoughts?
I have a question. So if hypothetically,
Mhm.
I wanted to do a Christmas show, is that going to be possible during that time frame? Because I mean,
Yeah. So the thing that's not on here is when we do normal size events like a Christmas or holiday event, bazaar, or whatever, we're buying the super burly tarp material that will go over the court that you would see in like a gymnasium. And so we'll be able to roll that out, put an event on top of what would be the basketball court for a quick 1-day event that wouldn't interfere too much with other user groups. And I don't have to take anything apart. If in theory one part of that whole facility was turf, moving that much turf is pretty easy. It's like, styrofoam. So that might not be a problem. The other thing that we're looking at is these windows where it's like, maybe it's right after flag football, but right before High soccer starts, there might be like a 2-weekend window where like that's available to rent for events, and then same thing on the other side, like maybe at Christmas time, like the futsal league stops, 2 weeks before Christmas, and we have sort of an event window where people would be able to rent that. And so that way I don't want to get into a situation where, it's championship weekend of the flag football league. And then all of a sudden now there's a market. So there'll be these little windows in between the seasons, we hope.
Is 2 turfs, 1 court an option too? Or are we just going to limit with whatever?
Yeah, I think it's whatever the user groups essentially.
Gotcha. So you're saying for this one, it's just going to be some combination of
Mhm.
court and turf,
Mhm.
depending on what is
Yep.
coming in.
Yep. And it could be that there's always 1 court of turf no matter what, because we will do tot times, and sometimes that's nice to have the kids be able to run around on the grass, and then some of the other kids could have their bikes over on the basketball court riding around. So But I think the idea that there could be a variety and that it's not going to change every day.
Mhm.
Hopefully it will change during the seasons.
Are there cost difference based on whether it's turf? I mean, there must be, whether it's turf.
To-
You're not gonna have ice over there.
No, to like rent them or use that space? No, it'll be the same. Yeah. No.
Is there a difference in what it costs the facility? Like, do we think is the court can be more difficult to maintain because you have to sweep it and you have more custodial, or you're worried about gum in it versus the turf? Has there been any thought about that?
The only thought that we put in is like rearranging. So if you really wanted if you wanted all turf and I got to put that down, there's a staff cost to that.
Right.
I think janitorial wise, it'll probably be pretty similar.
Comparable.
Yeah, and we're hoping to bring on an additional full-time maintenance employee. So that would bring my staff from 5 full-time maintenance laborers to 6. Is that right? 6 to 7. Yeah. To help offset. They wouldn't live over there. They'd just be part of the team.
Right.
But yeah, we would have coverage.
This looks pretty good to me. I'm into the flag football. It is getting huge. Like the Valley is going deep into flag football because they have high school leagues, especially girls.
Yep.
High school flag football right now is really popular. And this makes sense for the times where you're thinking it's going to be only turf.
Mhm.
Because realistically, from May to right now, no one's really too worried about being inside to find
Mhm.
grass or turf to play on.
And you mentioned the skate ramp, and I didn't give you an opportunity. Is that going to be within one of these areas? Or
That's-
will it be, are you trying to decide that?
We don't have a plan.
Mhm.
It's part of the mobile rec unit. It's designed to be able to be, in theory, moved and put up in other locations. We've got both skateboarding equipment and bike
Oh,
stuff. So
okay.
that's part of McKaylin's chaos. But I mean, if it fits in the field house, like, well, let's try to put it in there somewhere.
Mhm.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
If you're gonna have a section that's gonna be concrete only, I would lean into skate ramps and
Mhm.
bike stuff. That'd be cool. We used every Friday. This roller rink used to let us skate in the roller rink, and
Mhm.
it was cool.
Yeah, and if that user group gets crazy big,
Yeah, we can get
like
bigger.
maybe instead of 2 courts, it's like 1 concrete, 1 basketball, 1 turf for the whole winter, and that way the skaters can skate every day. Like if they're gonna pay their $3,
Right.
like, and there's a million of them, like I'll do whatever the community wants.
Well, that'd be cool.
So there is-
Skaters versus pickleballers.
You have to be careful you don't omit those other things that people like. I gotta try pickleball, maybe if my shoulder gets good.
I have had a bunch of people ask me about the skate park
Mhm.
because like there's work going on over there. They're like excited, like oh fixing it up, whatever. So that has been at least in people I've talked to, people have been
Mhm.
excited about that.
Yeah, I would love to start over on that and make it like a real usable space.
Demolish it and start from scratch.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's another
the
meeting.
dream,
Yep.
the dream list.
Any red flags or concerns on this? Really wanted to kind of plant the seed with you guys so that we're talking to the community, like it's not going to be turf all the time. It's not going to be court all the time. There's going to be some combination. And I'm sure after year 3, we'll kind of dial it in on what people actually want.
I think the schedule works because you're ramping up to go outside for turf,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can go outside, so you don't need the turf, and then you go back
Yeah.
around, so then you have a little variety. Well, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I like the colors. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I actually do too. I actually think it was really nicely organized. You know, and it might change based on the need, but I like how it's organized here with the concrete turf. And it
The-
looks like if you try to eliminate the amount that's moved all the time and have some consistency, that'll make a big difference.
I think the only thing that sticks out to me is your high school basketball into January, February, March. That's the only one. But realistically, they'll be just they'll be like winding their seasons down when it's turf only. I don't know. I just know in Soldana it is a pain because gym space is very hard to come by. So that would be the only one where someone's going to call and say, why can't we have court right now? We need
Mhm.
practice.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to compromise somewhere to make it work
Mhm.
for everybody.
And we did feel that probably the one user group that might use us the least is high school basketball, only because they have like such good access to all their gyms, whereas like everybody else gets pushed out. And so we thought, for them to be paying to use the courts might not be a priority for that user group. But
I think they had to pay to use the
the prep,
prep because they could not fit everybody
Mhm.
into SoHi.
yeah,
So I know there is a demand that's
Yeah.
not quite being met, but there are other KPBSD buildings they could go into.
Mhm.
And then hopefully we'll do something with that. And that can be
Mhm. Yeah, the other one too with that is just like uh when there's more demand and not enough space, then you got to start practicing at 7, 8, 9 p.m. or 6 in the morning. So yeah, from 5 o'clock to 7, we might have a shortage, but that's only because people want that prime time. So I don't know. Yeah, it'll be very interesting. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. If there are there any further questions? Seeing none, that'll take me over to 6B, my chair's report. I've pretty much said everything I wanted to say, so I will go fast. The field house, I love that it's moving along. The flowers this year were the most beautiful I've ever seen in the city, I think, and I wanted to know why there wasn't one at my house. But I mean, every time, even yesterday when I stopped over, or the day before, whatever day it was, the flowers are gorgeous, even out front of the building. It's beautiful. So, and around town, it's really welcoming. So many people have mentioned to me how it's really neat to drive through this town with the flowers, and when we have other things up as well. The project days, I just stopped by, was sort of disappointed I didn't get my act together, but I heard lots of good information. The music in the park this year was the best music I think I've heard, and it was consistent. Unfortunately, I didn't go to the last couple because it poured, and I thought, I'm usually wet, but I don't want to be wet today. So I mean, I look up the people and who they are, and I'm gonna send them you know, Lebanamp a note, because I just have been really just thrilled. And my cousin, who does the same thing you do, but not building things, does a lot with Park and Rec. He's really impressed with you and he's jealous. So I bring these things back and show him, and it's really cool. So that's sort of my message, and I wanted to keep it short because I asked a lot of questions. So 6C, city manager not here, and he's absent excused. And then we are 6D, city council, ex-officio member, Dan Nelson.
Thank you very much. I've not been to one of these in a little bit, so certainly good to see everybody. Mr. Chilson is at a campaign event, I think for the chamber. So I think I got the easier duty than having to answer a lot of questions from folks. A lot has been going on kind of at city council, just a lot of business things that are happening. We only had one meeting, which is now last month in August, so it was fairly long and fairly detailed. A couple things that I'll just bring up that are kind of occurring, at least what happened in the last meeting. We had 2 mini grant applications come in. So this is the mini grant program that we usually do. That was the Salut and Silver Salmon swim team and Way Out Women. And both grants were funded. Since we had the budget for it, we sometimes have 9 or 10 applications. We had 2 this round. So Salut and Silver Salmon is going to put up, and it'll be very interesting to see how they do this, a TV in the pool. It's so high to be able to do some instruction type things. So stroke techniques and things like that, instead of trying to do it on a cell phone with a coach on the pool deck, be able to do that in a little bit bigger way so the swimmers can stay in the pool. Way Out Women supports cancer patients. Of course, they have their big fundraising event usually every year, and mini grant will, really just go to help support and shore up those scholarships essentially that go out. We also had accommodation of Greg Meyer of the Food Bank and his very long record of service here in the Central Peninsula. We've passed a couple resolutions. One, which always has some good discussion, every time it happens, is trying to get the Board of Fisheries to come down and meet. And I think the question was even asked, would we give them free access to the sports center if they actually were to come down and grace us with their presence? So we'll see if they respond to that resolution. The other was opposition to a potential process for listing king salmon under the Endangered Species Act. And that was a procedural, mainly a procedural issue that was brought up as far as the feds not quite maybe following some of those things. So I'm sure there's going to be more to come on that. A couple things that are coming up. We do have our meeting next week. There's some grant funds coming in, which we get to appropriate, one of which is for the streets department. They need a cover for sand, which doesn't sound like a thing, I think, until you're trying to spread the sand in the cold and the snow and having it frozen. So I think some state money actually came in for that. We do have an item at the sports center disposing of utility easement, and that sounds like that's just getting relocated for construction, so it should be pretty straightforward there. There is an ordinance coming up for a zoning change, which is definitely caught some interest in folks in the neighborhood. There's an undeveloped piece of property adjacent to the Blazy subdivision off Cobuck that's currently zoned a single family. There's been a petition to zone it as a multifamily. So that is coming before council for hearing next week. And I think the other, what I'm going to say, big ordinance that's coming up next week is one that Jordan Shilson introduced for mobile home parks to try and have consistency in landscaping requirements, because there's different landscaping requirements for different parts of the city depending how you're zoned. It also has some language in there for noticing if you're going to close a park. There's some inconsistency there. So I think that obviously came out of some recent activities at some parks, and I know that got edited a little bit at planning and zoning, and I need to reread the current version because it does change a bit with input coming from folks. The last thing, of course, is we all noticed the walls going up, and the city council and mayor wanted the field house to be done by spring. And I think Kyle Cornelis said, no, we absolutely can't, but we are all very excited for it. And this is certainly having to do a fee schedule and some of those things is a really good step forward. So those are the highlights. There's a lot more going on, but if you have questions, please feel free to let me know.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. Well, ex officio comments, board member, we're down to item 8, member comments. Who would like to go first this evening? Or should I just call on you?
I'll go.
Okay, Annette.
I'll
thanks.
start this way. I don't know. I just wanted to thank Parks and Rec for all their help this summer with the Wednesday market, and Kaylin was amazing, and I appreciate all she did to help me and make the Wednesday market successful and safe, and just all the things. It was, I felt like the loading and unloading went really well with the vendors, and it just seemed like it was the most, I don't know, it was the most smooth we've had, I think, in a long time. And yeah, it was a great summer, and I'm just grateful for all the help that Parks and Rec has given me.
Thank you very much. Do you want to go next?
As a resident of Soldotna for the last 40 years, I've seen a lot of change. And it really feels like in the especially in the last 10, 15 years, it's we've really went in a good direction. And I'm really proud of our city for so many things. And the things that we're adding are going to help, hopefully, all phases, the seniors, the youth, and our winters do get a little long. So I think that'll help. I know I've got several apartment buildings that are just seniors, and trying to get a little group together to get them walking. And people don't really realize how much, if you don't use it, you lose it. So so it's very encouraging, and I appreciate all the groups that make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Scudder.
Well, I'm really excited. Once you start talking about things like what does it cost and what can we program and that kind of stuff, it really, when it comes to the field house, it really starts to feel like a real thing that's going to happen like close to this time, like next week here. Like we're getting there. So, and as far as I totally agree, Soldana has been killing it in lots of areas lately, which makes me very happy. And we feel progressive. We feel like we're doing things, which makes it a nice place to live. I like that. As far as all this work you guys have put in for this field house stuff, I know it's probably been crazy. But I'm super excited to be sitting here like ready for it to happen. So nice job. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Ms. Dutile?
Yeah, as a user of a lot of the different trails in town, like I go to Saldana Creek Park, Centennial. Saldana Creek Park, I'm impressed this year with the grass, that you guys were able to keep it looking pretty darn good. Yeah, and then at Centennial, it's fun to watch that field house. Did you get a picture that I sent you the other day? Okay, well, what's interesting to me is I took a picture of part of the field house, and then later I realized, oh, there was 2 construction workers in there. So if you zoom out, you can see how big it's gonna be. It's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, so it's fun to see this coming up, and next year at this time, maybe we'll be walking through the building. So yeah, keep on keeping on, because everybody has to move, no matter what age you are. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Scudder?
So my comments are pretty similar. Music in the park and the
Mm.
Wednesday market was a really big hit. I did notice the grass was in a lot better condition this year. I had some people come in from out of town that were really surprised with what we offer every week. They were here for a couple weeks and they said, geez, music in the park, Wednesday market, everything is consistent. I also think that the fee schedule that you've come up with was developed from comparable facilities, and you've put a lot of thought into it. The idea of maybe incorporating some family fees or some type of a way of allowing families to have the ability to afford to go would be a great idea, but I think you've put a lot of good research into it.
Thank you very much. And as a group, I think the Soldotna Parks and Rec and Soldotna City Hall is a happy, happening summer place. I'm serious. I have seen so much development and people working together and watering flowers. I wanted to stop in the middle of the highway and shoot a picture. I thought, probably not a good idea while you're driving, but I want to thank you for all your efforts and all of your hard work. It truly does take a village to raise a child and to raise our adults too. And for me, the city and you, Mr. Todd, and Michaelan and Shelby, I think you've done a phenomenal job, and I really applaud your direction, even when I disagree. I'm only teasing. But I really liked everything you put in here because it really gave us a clear idea of what it will look like, the work you'll have to do, what you'll be able to do, and how you'll be able to help all those kids or be there for all those kids who need a place to go and something to do, and adults too. I mean, I'll be in there walking, and I might even try pickleball, I don't know. But I did want to thank, I wanted to thank you for stepping in tonight. I really appreciate that. And I think it's really important to note that you do usually step in, Dan. And so I like that you're in the position you're in right now. So I think that's really important. And I think that's the end of my comments. Thank you for the work. You've done a nice job, Mr. Todd. So I guess at that, we will adjourn at 7:04 on and our next meeting, excuse me, our next meeting is November 7th at 5:30. So, but we'll adjourn our meeting tonight, September 5th. Thank you.